Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. Today we are talking about Djuna Barnes, who I have no idea who she is. I didn't even look her up before our chat, so I'm going to be learning along with you today. And I'm already obsessed with her name. I'm learning how to say it, just like my good friend Bert. And I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Djuna Barnes, you probably have heard of her. You just, but you know, with a name like that, you would maybe remember. But
I think I would.
You probably have heard about her because she was in and out a lot of out of the expat circles of the 20s. But Djuna Barnes was born on June 12th, 1892 in New York. And her father's name was Wald Barnes, which is, you know, another interesting name. He was a hopeful composer and artist and musician. And we should say hopeful because he wasn't very great at it. His mother definitely, you know, I think was very motherly and nice and told him how wonderful and amazing he was. But he really wasn't that very big of a talent.
It was nice moms.
Yeah, his mother's name was Zedel.
I love these names.
Yes, lots of interesting names with this one. She was a literary salon hostess. She was big into the suffragette movement, and she was a writer on her own too. So she really, you know, would have loved to have her son follow in her path as an artist. He did try his hand at every artistic thing that there was, and kind of just eked by a little bit. But that's not the most interesting thing about him. We're gonna get weird here in a little bit. Her mother Elizabeth Chappelle married Wald in 1889. Wald was actually a big believer in polygamy.
Now we're getting weird.
Now it's getting exciting. And so they were married in 1889. In 1897, he moved in a woman named Frances Fanny Clark. And so now, you know, it's just kind of like all those, I don't even remember I never even watched that TV show, but it was the guy and he had like four, you know, what was it? Oh, Big Love on HBO. I
never watched that either, but same idea.
Yeah, I think I watched a few. It was it was very weird. I was like, I mean, one mother is enough.
So much work.
Yeah. So Djuana was just 5 years old at the time when Fanny came into the picture. Her parents had 5 children between the two of them, and each of them had very exotic names, as you're going to guess. So there was Thurn, Zandon, Saxon, Shanger, and Djuana.
Sounds like they're from another planet.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, everything about the family is a little different. They were raised in a log cabin. She grew up in a log cabin in Storm King Mountain. And Fanny was also, of course, there. Fanny and her father would also have 3 children.
I feel like this is very Unabomber in a way.
Yeah, it's very, totally. You can picture that. Her father didn't really believe in like anything normal, as you could guess, and he didn't really believe in normal schooling. And he thought that, you know, he knew better and he could educate his children much better than any school did. So he kept all the children home and was basically their teacher. She would go on later in her life and say that she had never actually gone to a formal school as a child, but there has been other things come down through the years that says that she did actually attend school for about a year or so. But Wald and Zedel taught the kids music and writing and art. And so they were really big into, you know, all the artistic stuff. So they wanted to pass that on to all of the children too. At 18 years old, she was forced to marry Fanny's brother.
What?
So keep the chart out here. So this is her, what would we call her? The second mother, her polygamous mother.
Oh,
Brother.
wow.
His name was Percy Faulkner. He was 52 years old, and her whole entire
Ew.
family backed up the union.
She was 18 marrying a 52-year-old uncle?
Yeah. Luckily, the marriage only lasted 2 months. But
So she was forced, and then it didn't work out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, big surprise, right?
Yeah.
So, but before that, as a teenager, she was just 16 years old. She was raped, and there's different conflicting stories in the history of her life that says it was either her father or it was a neighbor, but it was completely consensual with her father.
So
Her
either
father,
way, her dad sounds like a total creep.
yeah, he's a total creep. So, she marries Percy. And 2 months later, she leaves. In 1912, her mother, I think, just figured out at this point she just had enough. So she divorced her father and took the children, and they went to New York. He, right after that, of course, married Fanny.
Makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, his first wife left. Why not take another?
I mean, it's good. You have backup there. She's just ready
Yeah.
to go.
If it doesn't work out, we're good.
Yeah. But the same year, Djuana enrolled to study at the Pratt Institute, and she was there for a year. And then after that, she joined the Art Student League in New York in 1913. She had very little money coming in, and so she was forced to drop all of that to help support her family and her mother. She did take a job writing for the Brooklyn Daily Eagle, which, they don't have names like that for papers anymore. I mean, they don't have papers anymore, but I mean, the
Yeah.
Brooklyn Daily Eagle. But she was never shy. She walked in there to get the job one day and she said, I could draw and I could write, and you'd be a fool not to hire me.
Oh, that's very bold for a woman of the early 1900s.
Yeah. And they hired her. So she became a very popular reporter. She was writing theater reviews and featured stories and interviews, but she also illustrated all of them. So she was actually a really good, really great artist as well. And so she'd illustrate all these. I'll put some of the pictures of them on my website for the show notes for this. But they're actually really interesting. But she never took any of it too seriously. She looked at everything kind of as a hobby, and it was just kind of something she could do at the time. So she just she wasn't really buying into anything. But then she ended up being asked to interview James Joyce. So she interviewed James Joyce in New York, and later she would see him, of course, in Paris, because all of our stories have to go to Paris.
Of course.
Um, but she also interviewed a gorilla,
A gorilla?
a gorilla named Dinah at the Bronx Zoo, and that article was like the big hit of that she had under her name for quite some
How
time.
did that interview go?
I'm not really sure. I mean, you see those movies of the dinosaurs that could paint and they could do other things.
I guess the gorilla was painting her a story.
Yeah, I don't think they're big talkers.
Yeah, me either. A lot of noises, but not
Yeah,
so
I
much.
think there's a lot of noises.
Hmm.
But so she decided to use her voice and her platform at the time to bring to light things that were happening and what she thought and believed, how women should be treated, and especially because of how she, grew up. She definitely had her very strong thinking that was very against what her family thought. So she once attended a boxing match and she sat ringside, and a place that women did not do, especially a woman on her own, without being chaperoned by a man. And
Mm.
in her article, she asked, What do women want at a fight?" She thought the entire scene of a fight in a boxing ring could basically describe everything that a woman would want.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
wonder what she meant by that.
yeah, between the cultural history and the representation of women at the time, you have this, is she the fighter? It's probably, is she the fighter? Or is she the other one that's getting knocked out? And how is she getting up? Is she, all of that kind of stuff.
Nice metaphors.
Yeah. So in 1915, she found a community in Greenwich Village, New York, that was with a lot of other artists and writers. And for a time being, she really liked that. She collaborated illustrating books for many of the authors. She did a lot of playbills as well. She began to write short stories and books, basically all relying on her personal experience in her childhood, which, the good, the bad, and the ugly were all brought to light on the pages.
And was it popular? People liked it?
It wasn't, I mean, at that point, not, it wasn't really widely distributed. But it was also had a lot of very graphic look at different views on sex as well.
I don't think the public was ready for that in the early 1900s.
No, especially not from a woman.
She used a pen name like Colette.
Yeah, exactly. But in 1921, McCall sent her to Paris. And she arrived there and she quickly mingled with the expats of Saint Germain. 1921 is also, of course, when in December when Hemingway got there. So, this is when they were all arriving over there into Paris and especially over there in Saint Germain. When she, just like Hemingway, she arrived with a lot of letters of introduction to be taken around to, so she could meet up with these different people and, hotels to stay at. And she ended up seeing James Joyce again, and she sat down with him and she interviewed him but she also she was really inspired by his style of the way he wrote. And so she really kind of gleaned onto that and used that as her own style. Her first autobiographical
That's a mouthful.
The French and the English messed my head up. Novel was called Writer. This style was very much like Joyce, which means it was a little hard to read. And it was a big critical success, but nobody else wanted to read it. Like the critics liked it, but nobody else really liked it. It sold, the very first printing of it sold pretty well. And then after that, it just literally just fell off the face of the earth.
Because people are like passing the word around like, this is hard to read.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, James Joyce is, I haven't read really any of his stuff, but James Joyce is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But it even was like on the, it made it to the top of the New York Times. But when the second edition was released, it just, the bubble had burst and nobody wanted it. She was given a very large advance with the book, and so it allowed her to purchase an apartment in Paris on the Rue Saint-Romain, which is just over in the 7th. It just close to Saint Germain. And then at that time, she had met a woman in Paris named Thelma Wood. And she was also an expat. She came from Kansas, and she was hoping to be a sculptor. And she came to Paris and met Djuana, and the two of them began having an affair. And she moved in with her. She mingled a lot with the expats at the time, and including Natalie Barney, who's another lady we're going to talk about in another episode. But they had a short affair too. So at this time, there was this real big community of lesbians that were living in Paris. At the time, it wasn't completely okay, of course, in Paris, but it definitely was not okay in the US. So they all came to Paris, and they were quite, the belles of the ball, and they would have salons, and they'd have all of these parties, which, when we talk about Natalie, she was quite the hostess. So they all kind of mixed and mingled together. Natalie and Djuana they stayed very close, even though their relationship had a lot of ups and downs, even on the just friendship wise. But Thelma's relationship with Djuana turned out pretty bad. Thelma was drinking a lot. She was sleeping around a lot as well. And when it finally became too much, Djuana just basically, ended it. And they broke it off, and she fell into a pretty deep depression and began drinking a lot. So in those first years, she wrote what was called the Ladies' Almanac, and it was stories of the lesbian life in Paris.
Oh, that sounds like a fun read.
But it wasn't a big seller. She retitled it later, A Lady of Fashion. She had it reprinted, and she physically would go and walk the streets of Paris selling her book.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I
Was
mean,
it in French?
yeah, I mean, that's a big difference going from the lesbian life of Paris to calling it a lady of fashion. I mean, I think I could just picture these, these ladies in the 16th getting this book and be like, oh, a lady of fashion. And then, whoa,
It's a little different.
I didn't know what kind of fashion that was.
Oh, that's
Um,
hilarious.
but it was also banned in the US, so she couldn't even ship it back to the US, and, it was written in English, so she couldn't send it back to the US. It had to be smuggled in there, of course, just like Joyce and Ulysses.
Mhm.
But it was, she also wrote at the same time another book, and it was based on the relationship with Thelma. She wrote it from 1932 to 1933 when she left Paris for London. She had to get out of Paris. She was just drinking all of the time. She was friends with Peggy Guggenheim, and
Wow.
Peggy Guggenheim basically kind of helped her out. She paid to take her to London, to set her up in London. And at that time, it was, she was fine for a little bit. She was writing all the time. She started writing Nightwood, which she had actually started in Paris, and she wrote it sitting at the Café de la Marie, which is right across from Saint Sulpice, which is a lot of people love that little cafe.
Mhm.
And of course, Hemingway would sit there, and James Joyce, all of these different writers of the time. But Nightwood was a love story of Robin and Nova, and it was based on Djuana and Thelma and their very twisted, dramatic relationship. Yes. So in London, she really started drinking a lot. And Peggy Guggenheim was kind of just got tired of it, couldn't take it anymore, and had her taken to an asylum,
Oh,
which
no.
is, now we call it rehab. When you call it an asylum, it sounds even scarier.
Yeah,
But
it sounds super scary. Like they're taking her away forever.
yeah, so that was in 1939. She tried to kill herself right before that, and then that's when Peggy was like, "No, you need to go get help." When she still just fought everything, and she was very difficult to deal with. She was very headstrong. Peggy got so tired of it, she just put her on a ship and sent her back to New York.
She sent her back to New
Yeah,
York.
just like go back to New York. And of course, she goes back to New York and she moves in with her mother into a very small apartment, which was just a complete nightmare. Especially, I mean, how could you do that after you're living this life in Paris and, at all the parties and everything, and now you're going back to live with your mom in a teeny tiny apartment?
Sounds like my worst nightmare. Also, she owned an apartment in Paris. Like she couldn't get her crap together.
Yeah, no, she couldn't get her stuff together. So, but her mother had become very religious, and she basically would spend like 20 hours a day doing nothing but talking to Djuana about religion.
Oh, that sounds like not fun. In a
Yeah,
tiny
not fun.
apartment with your mother.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
Bible verses
especially, after
24/7.
she was writing books about, the lady's life in Paris, and now here's the mom.
Ladies of fashion, Claudia.
I know, now mom is like, well, Adam and Eve.
That's all illegal. No lesbian stuff here.
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
she was still really depressed, and she was still drinking a lot. So her family actually ended up, again with the help of Peggy Guggenheim, sending her to a asylum again in the spring of 1940. While she was there, it was probably a dumb idea for her family to do that, because while she was there, she decided to write a play about her family and growing up. And
Mm.
this was No Holds Bar. So she, once her mother and her family found out about this and started reading some of it, it was like a full on war. They basically shunned her and pushed her away, didn't want to have anything to deal with her. And so that, after everything that happened in Paris, they were incredibly embarrassed by her behavior in Paris and what she had been writing, because it was all under her name. But I mean, come on, their family is not like, I mean, they were polygamous, and
I was gonna say, it's not like her family's like a shining example of society at that time.
exactly.
Living in their log cabin, marrying off uncles and creepy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what else would they expect? But she ended up, with the help of friends, and again with Peggy Guggenheim, she ended up getting enough money together that she got an apartment in Greenwich, at 5 Patchen Place. And so she stayed there actually for the whole rest of her life.
So she never went back to Paris.
Never went back to Paris. At the same time, her writing was really slowing down. Peggy Guggenheim would try to, get her involved in any of the exhibits she was doing. She tried to get Djuana, to help with, writing about them and things. And she just, she was drinking so much that she just really had, she didn't want to do anything. She also became a recluse and never wanted to even leave her apartment.
It's so sad.
Yeah, by the mid 1950s, she realized how badly, and this is pretty amazing to just do this on your own, especially after all the times in rehab, that she decided her drinking basically left her completely trapped, and so she couldn't, write or sketch or do anything, and she just one day stopped drinking.
So she just went cold turkey on her alcoholism.
Yeah, she just went cold turkey.
Wow.
But so she began to pick up the play that she wrote about the family. The family was probably like, just send her some more scotch.
Yeah, keep her quiet, keep her drunk.
Yeah, keep her drunk. We don't want her. We don't want to hear anything. But so she decided to pick up the play again. It's called Antiphon, and she wrote it. It was all about her family and all of those horrible years when she was growing up. She said that she wrote it. She was so angry when she wrote it. She said she wrote it through clenched teeth.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's one therapy way to get rid of your
Get it
problem.
out. Get it out, sister. But her health began to fail, and she had really bad arthritis that made it very hard to write, of course. And so she's tried writing with a typewriter to very slowly. But in Antiphon, she danced around the whole relationship with Augustine, who was the older widow, and her daughter. So it's kind of based on her mother and her.
Mhm.
The daughter's name was Miranda, and it ends with the mother killing the daughter
Mm.
with a large bell.
Wow.
And when I read that, for me, the historian that I am, I'm envisioning the bell of like Notre Dame.
Yeah, I was gonna say that must have been a very large bell falling
I
off.
know, like most people in your house, maybe you have a little bell, like maybe if you're sick, you ring the bell and mom brings you more, water.
Whatever. Yeah.
Who has a bell that's big enough to kill somebody? These are questions.
I mean, did she beat her to death with the tiny bell? Who
I don't
knows?
know. I don't know. But this was, it was all in the play. Of course, I'm sure her mother didn't like that. But in her final years, she very reluctantly decided to work with a publisher. That this woman just kept constantly contacting Djuana and trying to, because she had all of these stories and short stories that she wrote that had never been published. And, they really wanted to work with her. And Djuana was just like, no, just get away. She didn't want to see anybody. She stayed in her apartment. Sometimes people would come and from the street into the from the courtyard, yell up at her window. And she would just yell at them and tell them to go away.
So she was a complete hermit.
Total hermit. I mean, I think we could all relate to that a little bit now. But
I mean,
she,
yeah.
but she hated publishers. She called them printers. She didn't like, she didn't like anybody having anything to do with anything that she did. She wanted to make all of her own decisions. So she finally decided to give in, and she worked with this one publisher, and they ended up publishing a collection of her short stories just right before she died.
Well, lucky that publisher.
I know they were very they weren't going to back down. I think that maybe that was it. Maybe it's because she was just as eager as Djuana and how Djuana acted.
Yeah, I was gonna say she killed her with the bell.
Yeah, she killed her with the bell.
Ringing at her.
But Djuana ended up dying. She was at 90 years old.
She lived a long time for an
Yeah,
alcoholic.
she died in 1982 in New York, just 6 days after her birthday, alone in her apartment.
Well, that sounds like the life of a recluse.
Yeah, very sad. Her Paris years, of course, were filled with parties and drama, but she made lasting friends through that whole time that she did still, keep up with in letters, even though she never was able to get back to Paris. But you could, anytime you're reading anything about that period in Paris and the expats, you're always going to come across her name's always going to come up. She was in it was in the scene in Midnight in Paris when Gil goes the first night and they go to a party and then you don't see her, but he was dancing and they said, "Oh, that was Djuna Barnes," and he said, "Oh, no wonder she wanted to lead."
Ah!
But you don't actually see the actress that's, portraying her.
Oh, now I'll know who that was.
Yeah,
I had no
now you know who that is.
she kept in contact with Louise, her lesbian dramatic lover.
She
The
did it.
drama.
Yeah, yeah,
Heartbreak. Do we
yeah.
know what happened to Louise?
No, no, I mean, she just, or Thelma, she ended up dying much sooner because she was pretty bad into drinking and sleeping around.
Yeah. Well, Paris will do that to you.
It will do that, but she, back then she hung out with all those people when she'd go to Gertrude Stein's salon, because she was a woman. She was forced into the kitchen with Alice B. Toklas, because all the men hung out. All the men hung out with Gertrude, where they were, talking about art and writing and everything, and the women were forced into the kitchen with Alice B. Toklas.
That's so funny. I love how Gertrude was the dude. She's like, stay in the kitchen, ladies.
Yeah, but Alice and Djuana ended up having a very long friendship and kept in touch until their final days.
Surprised she never made it back to Paris. I wonder what happened to her apartment.
I don't know.
I would love to yeah, I mean, it's so cool that she made enough money just from writing. She could buy an apartment in Paris with that advance. That would never happen today.
I know. I just always, I mean, when we do our Sunday walks, I always just think like, do the people know that are living there now who lived, it could be, this is where Man Ray lived, or this is where,
Or do they care?
Modigliani, like, do people know that they're living in the same, bedroom that Modigliani lived in? It's just, they
So
probably
wild.
don't know or care.
Yeah, we don't care. Yeah. We just need to pay these high rents and go to work.
Exactly.
Well, thank you guys for listening to another great episode with Claudine. And don't forget to join us every Sunday for our live virtual walks around Paris, where Claudine gives us history over Zoom as we walk the streets of Paris with you. And we do that every Sunday, so tune in to learn more about that. And Claudine, we'll talk to you next week.
We'll see you then. Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.